As the world responds to the COVID-19 pandemic, we face the challenge of an excess flow of information related to the virus. Some of this information may be false and potentially harmful.
Now, inaccurate information spread widely and at a speed, making it more difficult for the public to identify, verify facts and advice from trusted sources. We all can help stop the spread.
If you see any content that you believe to be false or misleading, verify and report to relevant platforms.
This message is brought to you by Speak Life Initiative of Nankpak Cirfat, made possible with support from ConnexUs through the European Union's instrument contributing to stability and peace. A very good evening to you and welcome to the first in the series of Speak Life Initiative webinar. I am Nankpak Cirfat, an influencer for change on the ConnexUs platform. ConnexUs is a platform that brought together influencers from around the world, and they are all working in their communities and making great impact. This webinar is sponsored by ConnexUs through the European Union instrument contributing to stability and peace. And today on the webinar, we shall be discussing on the team, the brother team, climate action responding to COVID-19. And the theme for today is COVID-19 and its variant. And we have a great personality today that we shall be discussing on this particular topic. We have Dr. Daniel Meshak. He is a physician. He is a doctor with the Jos University Teaching Hospital. Well, I will not give out everything about him. He will do a bit of introduction about himself. So, Dr. Meshak, good evening and welcome to the call.
Yeah, good evening, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. So, before we continue, let's hear from you a bit about you so that our viewer, our listener can have a bit knowledge about you, and it will be easier for them to go on with this discussion.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I don't know where to start from, but like it's been said, my name is Dr. Daniel Meshak. I'm a lecturer with the Faculty of Clinical Sciences in the University of Jos, and also a consultant family physician with the Jos University Teaching Hospital. I'm also an alumni of the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, University of London, and also a Chevening Scholar in 2017 and 2018. I'm also the convener of Plateau Intelligentsia. So I guess that's, in terms of introduction, that should be okay.
Okay. Very well then. Thank you very much for that brief introduction. So to you listener, to you viewer, be rest assured that today's topic will properly be given great attention to, because we have not just an expert in the field, in practice, but also he is a lecturer. So he will share with us both from the theoretical perspective and from what is on the field. Once again, you're welcome to this webinar. It is a webinar brought to you by Speak Life Initiative of Influencer for Change Nankpak Cirfat, and it is supported with support from ConnexUs through the European Union that is contributing to stability and peace. So let's get over to the discourse for today. Doctor, what is the basic, what should we know about COVID-19? When COVID-19 is mentioned, what should first come into the minds of people?
Okay, Thank you very much. As you're aware, since December 2019, the world became inundated with this issue of COVID-19. It was first noticed around 2019 December when a group of people started coming down with symptoms of pneumonia. However, the cause of that pneumonia,
Okay, we seem to be having a bit of network
particular
challenge.
pneumonia was
Okay.
okay. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Please go on, sir.
Okay, so I don't know. I've prepared a slide. I don't know if that could be shown, or I should
Yes, very well.
just go ahead and answer. Okay. So I don't know if you have the slide. Can you help me share it?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the slide is on.
Okay. All right. So thank you. So to the next slide. So I just want to talk about brief about on COVID-19, and then we also been hearing about variants. Let's just understand what a variant means. And then also, I hope by the end of the lecture, we'll understand the basic facts about the COVID-19 disease and the variant, and then also the non-pharmacological preventive measures, and then also the principle behind the COVID-19 vaccine. And then we talk about some of the myths. So next slide. So next. So I'll start by talking about the COVID-19. Like I said, it was something that came to the world around 2019. As a group of people started coming down with pneumonia, and then now, after research, it was found out that most of them were coming from a particular market. It was called the Huanan Seafood Market in Wuhan, China, in the late 2019. Next slide, please. So, and so research started, and then now discovered that by the late, by the first week of January, less precisely around 7 January, this virus was now, it was identified as a virus causing this pneumonia, type of pneumonia, and it was first named the novel coronavirus. And so research started. Once they were able to identify the virus, they were able to now sequence the genetic composition of the virus, and were able to send this virus to the various scientific community who are engaged in research in finding the cure and also finding vaccines for it. So, but as a way of introduction, COVID-19 stands for coronary disease 2019, and the short form of it is COVID-19, and it's caused by the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, and it was named like that because it was similar to the SARS virus. You know, if you remember in 2002, 2003, there was a pandemic called the SARS pandemic. And so that was, it was close to it. And so it was named in that way. Okay. And right now, it probably started in animals, but it's still spreading between people. And it is still a new virus. We are still learning. There are so many things that we're yet to know about it. And so research is still ongoing. Next slide. So right now, before I go, I want to also define what an outbreak or an epidemic is. An epidemic is the occurrence of higher numbers of a disease than what is usual for a place and time. So let's assume that in a place, let's say Nigeria, we never had COVID-19. And then all of a sudden we are having COVID-19. The usual one is that the occurrence is almost zero. And so now we're having it. That's an epidemic or an outbreak. Let's say we have cholera, and the usual occurrence of cholera, let's assume maybe is just 5%. Then all of a sudden, that is unusual for that place and time, it becomes an epidemic. And a virus is also the smallest type of microorganism that cause diseases in humans. So in terms of pandemic, when now you have a pandemic with COVID-19, it started in just China, and by now it has spread to over 200 countries and territories all over the world. And so we can see the widespread. So that's why it's a pandemic.
Please, they'll just be seem to have a bit.
Once it's affecting more, is called a pandemic. Next slide.
Okay.
So sorry.
Yes, please go on.
Okay, so all right, just pneumonia. Most of them were coming from this Huanan seafood and animal market in Wuhan, which is in the central province of China. And so by January 1st, the market was closed down, but by January 7th, 2020, the virus was identified as a new corona virus. And next slide. By January 12th, the first case was reported outside China in Thailand. And because of some politics, as of January 30, 2020, the World Health Organization declared as a public health concern. But by February 11, 2020, the World Health Organization named the disease as coronary disease 2019. And it was done because they didn't want to name it after China, where it was first seen because of stigma. Yeah. And so it was named coronary disease 2019. Short form of it is COVID-19. And then the virus causing it was named severe acute respiratory syndrome coronary disease 2, because it was genetically related to the coronavirus that caused the SARS outbreak of 2002-2003. And so far, by March 11, WHO officially declared COVID-19 as a pandemic. And in almost every country in Africa, we've seen these cases, and now it is in over 220 countries, areas all over the world. And it is peculiar in terms of, right now we know the devastating consequences of COVID-19. It has destroyed many people, in terms of it has killed many people, and also it has devastated economies, and it has also has social implications, consequences, in the sense that it has devastated the way of life of people. It has disrupted the way of life of people, and also it has some mental health issues that it came with. So it is really a serious problem. So next, I just want us to look at the properties of coronavirus. So what is it about coronavirus? Next slide. So the coronavirus, you know, viruses are named according to family. So they are grouped according to family. So coronaviruses have been with humans for long, and they cause mild illness to severe illness. And most of them, they cause a wide variety of disease in animal species, because they can cause severe illness, they can cause mild illness. And sometimes some of the common cold we have had in the past could be due to coronavirus. But however, we've had some few ones that have become pandemic. And well, we're thinking that most of these viruses are in animals, but because of human interaction with animals, we are now having a spillover event. And so, for example, we've had pandemics in the world, and the most common ones are in 2002, 2003. That's when we have the SARS pandemic, in which it killed over about 4,000 people worldwide. And then in 2003, that was in China then. Then in 2012, 2013, we had the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome coronavirus, which was discovered in Saudi Arabia. And the dromedary camel was the human host or vector. And so that one killed over 800 people globally. And then now in 2019, we're having the COVID-19, initially named the novel coronavirus, but now is the SARS-CoV-2 causing the COVID-19 virus. And so what is it, next slide, what about the coronaviruses? What are their basic properties? They are large envelope positive strand RNA viruses, and also they are ecologically diverse with the greatest variety seen in bats, suggesting that they are reservoirs for many of these viruses. So many of them are seen in bats. So it's been speculated that for most coronaviruses, their reservoir is in bats. And so coronaviruses are zoonotic, meaning they can be transmitted between animals and humans. So they can infect animals, they can also infect humans, and that's what makes them zoonotic. And then peridomestic mammals may also serve as intermediate hosts, facilitating recombination, mutation, and the rest. So mammals mostly can serve as host or reservoirs. So so we are seeing that, especially with example like cats, bats, and the rest can also serve as that. And then also the detailed investigation found that SARS-CoV-19 was transmitted from civet cats to humans, and also the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome from the camels. But in terms of the coronaviruses, right now we don't know. There's still investigation, and there's a lot of politics being played around it. China has refused to allow WHO to go and investigate. But we've seen that several known coronaviruses are circulating in animals that have not yet infected humans. And the implication for this statement is this, that there's still a tendency for another pandemic later on. So we don't know. So we still need to be careful. So in terms of the structure, when you look at this diagram, you'll see this is the structure of the coronavirus. And the coronavirus was named, it was from a Latin word that the word corona was derived. And when you look at this spike glycoprotein here, you will see that it looks like a crown. And so that is where it got its name from. Corona simply means crown in Latin. And so because of this spike that looks like a crown, if you look at where it's called spike glycoprotein in the diagram, that's where the coronavirus got its name. And when you look at some of these properties, it has implication in getting drugs and even vaccine. You usually target any of these parts of the virus. So next slide. So now, what is it about viruses? You know, what is the peculiarity of viruses that makes them to be the ones that are always causing most of the pandemics that we know, or epidemics? You know, number one, the viruses have the ability to infect very easily, and so it makes them prone to causing pandemic. You can see with coronavirus, just with respiratory transmission, they're able to infect people all over the world. Then the viruses also have the ability to adapt and change periodically. That's what we call genetic diversity. I will talk about it later because this particular statement has implication in the variants, the COVID-19 variants. Because of this property, they can change with time. After some time, they easily change. So they, and then
let's still bear with us. Seem to be having
because the viruses as a cyst, unlike bacteria, we have antibiotics. And you'll find out that deal with many kinds of types of bacteria. Unlike the viruses, we're still having, you find many illnesses that are caused by viruses, we're still finding it difficult to cure them. Look at HIV, for example. We can't cure HIV up till now, you know, and quite a number of the viral ailments. And then also, there are not many drugs that are effective against, they cause a wide spectrum of manifestation in different individuals. So they can cause mild disease in some individuals and then also cause severe diseases in some individuals. And then the viruses can survive for long outside the humans on inanimate objects. So they can be on a property or something, and then they can survive there for long until when they enter into humans, then they become reactivated. And so that is peculiar about viruses and cause them to be they cause difficulties, in terms of diseases and the management. So what is it about viruses that make them to cause epidemics that eventually leads to pandemic? The first thing is that the issue of immunity. Whenever we don't have immunity over a virus or anything, a disease-causing organism, then we can easily it can easily cause an epidemic. And so you find out that with COVID-19, it's a new disease. It came, people didn't have immunity against it. And so because of that, it was just infecting people, and making people to come down with the serious disease. But however, if, let's say, there was some kind of immunity within the population, it wouldn't have become an epidemic. It will just be something that we can contain. And that brings us to the concept of herd immunity. Herd immunity simply means a situation whereby once a certain proportion of the population has immunity against a particular disease, then it is able to protect the small percentage who don't have immunity against this disease. So for example, with COVID-19, the threshold for herd immunity is about 70%. So if 70% of the population in a community has immunity against COVID-19, then it will be able to protect 30% who don't have immunity, who are susceptible to it. That is a concept that has worked with vaccine, and it is something that is true, and it has worked with mankind ever since. Then another thing that is making viruses to cause epidemics is because they are zoonotic by nature, and so they can reside in animals and also affect humans. And these are animals that we are all constantly engaging ourselves with, like in rats, they carry Lassa fever. In Ebola virus is bats, and then with influenza, like birds, chicken, and eggs, we're constantly interacting with them. Because of that interaction, we are at risk of getting infected with viruses, viral infections. Then with urbanization and modernization, we are moving into their territories, places that used to be just trees, bush. Right now, because with development, we are going into those territories, and because of that, we are interacting with those animals, and so we become prey. We are interacting with them, and it puts us at risk of getting infected with these viruses. For example, yellow fever is caused by the yellow fever virus, and you find that as communities are moving towards the forest and the rest, they are at risk of getting infected with yellow fever. Then what about our socio-cultural, political, and environmental situations? Because of our culture, we live a communal culture whereby we live together, we do things together, and we love to congregate when there are occasions. And because of that, if someone is infected, he can easily infect other people with it. And then with globalization and climate change, with globalization, you find out that I can be here, and in the next 6 hours, I'm in London. In the next 12 hours, I'm in the US. And so if I have a disease, I can carry it to all those places and infect people. And then with climate change, we're beginning to see resurgence of diseases that have been forgotten. People have claimed that because of the melting of the glaciers, that's ice, but now we are seeing a resurfacing of microorganisms and causing disease. And so that has been implicated in why these viruses are causing epidemics. So the next thing I want to talk about I told you about the properties of, next slide. I told you about the properties of viruses, which make what I call genetic diversity. So viruses are evolving always over time. And when they change, when they are multiplying, replicating themselves, producing the copies of themselves, that's how they infect cells in the body. And so there could be some slight change, a change in the position of amino acids, and so it could give us a different organism. And so when this occurs, most changes will have no impact on the properties of this virus. However, some changes, like it's been observed in COVID-19, will lead to variants of the virus that may affect how fast the virus can be transmitted from one person to another. So it will affect the transmissibility of the virus, or the changes in that virus could lead to change in the disease severity. It could make it to become more severe, or it could be less severe. Or
Okay, doctor,
in
let
another
me ask
instance,
you, is that one of the reason why we have new variants of COVID-19?
yes, that's
Okay,
the
very well.
reason.
Okay.
So I'm just coming to that slide. If you just be
Okay.
patient, I will just come to it very soon.
Okay.
Yeah. So also another thing is that it could also affect the efficacy of vaccines. Vaccines could either work or will not work because of the emergence of new variants, or sometimes even the drugs or even the diagnosis may be affected when we are having new variants. So next slide. So far now we are having some variants as diagnosed by WHO, and so far we've had quite a number, but these are just a few. We have the alpha variant, we have the beta variant, we have the gamma variant, and you can see there's a way that molecular epidemiology is being done to trace those changes, at what point they change. And so you can see for the alpha variant, it was in the United Kingdom in around September 2020 that it was seen. But of all these, the most significant one is the Delta variant. The Delta variant was first discovered in India around October 2020. And so far, it is responsible for many of these of the upsurge. Right now, we're having the third wave of COVID-19. And so go to the next slide. Just want to talk about the Delta variant. So what is it about the Delta variant we have found is that it is highly contagious. So that variant, it has affected the transmissibility from the original COVID-19 virus. This one is highly contagious. In fact, it's twice as contagious, more contagious than the original COVID-19. And then also, we are seeing in terms of severity that these symptoms, you know, in the original COVID-19, it was affecting more of the older population. But with this Delta variant, we are seeing that it's affecting more of the younger persons. And then what we have also seen from research, again, is that it's been studied that in terms of the viral load, you find out that the viral load in for Delta variant is higher than the original COVID-19 virus. And so that means it will have more severity because of that. And so we're also seeing that the Delta variant is affecting more people who are not vaccinated. People who have not been vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccines are the ones that are getting more of the severe cases. But also, we are seeing breakthrough cases for people who are vaccinated. It is rare, but it can also occur. But even if it occurs, those people are having just a mild form of the disease. And so right now, that's why we are still, as some experts are still advocating that we still wear masks, even if you are fully vaccinated because of that. And so far, what we have seen is that most of the vaccines that we have, COVID-19 vaccines that we have, they are effective against the Delta variant. And so, but there's still more variants of the COVID-19 are still likely to come, because I told you that it's a property of the virus that they keep evolving over time and they keep changing. As they change, they become a variant, and the variant could either be more transmissible or less transmissible. It could also be more severe or less severe. It could have implication on the drugs and the vaccines. So that is that about the variant. So what is the situation of COVID-19 right now globally? Next slide. It has affected over 200 million people so far. And right now we have about 4.3 million deaths globally, and it's seen in over 200 countries. So far, over 4 billion doses of the vaccine has been administered. Thank God in Nigeria, we just received about 4 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine. But what is the picture in Nigeria? As of, I think on Wednesday, we have 790 new cases. That's the second highest since this thing has started. The first one was since January. And so that's to tell you that we're having now an upsurge in the third case. And largely, the experts are thinking it's likely due to due to the Delta variant. Next slide. Now, in Nigeria, we've had over 179 confirmed cases, but so far only 2,000 deaths. But then what I want us to look at is the total sample tested. We've tested just 2.5 million so far, conducted 2.5 million tests. And that is even worrisome. Imagine in a population of 200 million people, and you are testing just 2.5 million. It's grossly inadequate. So we may not even be adequately able to really identify the true magnitude of this problem in Nigeria. So what is also the case in Plateau State? Next slide. As of yesterday, we have 9,122, 1,123 confirmed cases. Next slide. And then also we've seen that we've recorded just 57 deaths on the plateau. But then again, I also think that we are not testing enough, and probably that might be the reason why we are getting that kind of results.
Okay, so Doctor, before
next,
we
I want to
continue,
okay.
Yes. So with this number of low testing in Plateau State and in Nigeria in general, what does it pose for us as a people?
Okay, because the thing is that when people don't know their status in terms of whether they have the vaccine or not, they may not be able to adopt behaviors that will stop them from transmitting to others. And so, because people will assume they don't have it. And the thing is that, like it's been said, many people that will have the disease will be asymptomatic or have a mild case. And so they can infect other people without knowing it. And so it becomes a problem in terms of curtailing this problem if we don't know how to quantify it. And then sometimes some people could have the disease and it could be a severe one, but we don't know because we don't know that it's COVID-19. So the person may we may not pick that this is a serious thing until when it is too late. And so it is important for us to be able to identify where the problem is, be able to put up measures to stop the spread of that COVID-19. Because once it affects people who are susceptible, they may be, it might lead to severe disease.
Wait though, this COVID-19 vaccine where everybody talk about, how is it possible say they say?
You see ba, this COVID-19 they part of the coronavirus family. We don't dey. So scientists don't get plenty information. We don't help them, make them prepare the vaccine, make it be safe and secure, make people the user.
Okay. I go pay make I get the vaccine.
No, the vaccine they free and you don't even need any health insurance before you go get out.
I dey interested to make I protect myself.
Oh yeah now, waiting you the wait for.
This informate now from the Speak Life initiative of Nankpak Cirfat, where they possible with support from ConnexUs through the European Union's instrument where they contribute to peace and stability.
Yeah.
So do I continue?
Yes, please.
All right. So the next slide, please. In terms of the transmission of the disease, usually the incubation period is about 2 to 14 days. And incubation period simply means from the time when the virus gets into your body and when you begin to manifest symptoms, that interval is the incubation period. So it's between 2 to 14 days. For most people, when the virus gets into their body, from 2 days to 14 days, that's when they begin to show the symptoms. But for most people, they begin to manifest symptoms from 5 to 6 days. And transmission can occur even from asymptomatic individuals or during the incubation period. In fact, with Delta variant, we are seeing that, in fact, it starts infecting other people much earlier, really serious. So how is COVID-19 spread? There are two basic ways, next slide, from person to person spread. So most people are being infected from other people when in close contact, especially within less than a meter of those people, because when someone coughs, it brings out the virus. And when you are within 1 meter, you can easily get the virus. So when you are less than 2 meters, you are likely going to get it, because it spreads through droplet created when we talk, cough, sing, sneeze, or breathe heavily. And these drops enter through our body through the nose, eyes, mouth, or when the infected droplets are inhaled. So I call them men, mouth, eyes, nose. When that's how the virus gets into our body and infect us, through the mouth, the eyes, and the nose. In indoor spaces with inadequate ventilation, COVID-19 has spread to people who were more than 2 meters. So being indoor increases the risk of the spread from one person to another.
Okay.
And infected people with minimal or no symptoms can still spread the disease. Then the second mode of disease of the spread, next slide, is spread from contact with infected surfaces or objects. So this virus is a bit heavy. When you cough, you can drop on tables, on surfaces. And so when you touch these objects with your hands, and then you touch your mouth, your eyes, or your nose, you can easily transmit this virus into your body, and it can cause that. And some of these surfaces that are high risk include door handles, because most people do it, most people will touch the door handle to open it, especially if it is a public place. And then our phones could be carriers of diseases, because this one will touch it, that one will touch it, and then we touch our mouth, our eyes, or our nose and get it. And then stairs or handshake. With handshake, when you cough into your hands, you could spread the virus into your palms, and then you shake another person and the person touches his mouth or nose, so you can easily get that. And so these are the two basic ways that infection could occur. Next slide. So for infection to occur, this...
Okay, so let me ask you this. You said two basic ways. Does that infer that there are other ways whereby the virus can be transmitted?
Well, like I said, the two basic is person-to-person spread. And under the person-to-person spread, when you are in close proximity with the person, you can easily get it. When you are, especially indoors, when you stay indoors, like enclosed environment, especially with no ventilation, you can easily get it. But then again, and then contact with infected surfaces can also get it. But we've also seen, especially within hospital environment, there are procedures that could convert this virus from a droplet to airborne. It becomes airborne, it flies in the atmosphere. There are certain procedures within the hospital that can create that. And so that also requires tact, requires being careful, especially in the hospital environment.
Okay.
So basically, that's how it is.
Okay.
So for COVID-19 infection to occur, these are the conditions that must be satisfied. There must be the organism causing the infection, in this case, COVID-19. And there must be a reservoir, place where the virus lives and replicates, such as people or humans can serve as reservoir. Then the portal of exit, that's how the virus leaves the body. So in the humans, when one is infected, the virus leaves when we cough, when we sneeze, or we talk, it comes out from our mouth. And then mode of transmission is usually, it can be airborne, it can be direct contact, or it can be mostly droplets in the case of COVID-19. And then it has to find a place to enter into the body. And so in the case of COVID-19, it can enter through the mouth or the eyes or the nose. And then one is entered, if there's, requires a susceptible host. That means the immune system of the person that is infected is not able to fight against the virus for the disease to occur. And so these are the conditions that needs to be satisfied if infection of COVID-19 needs to occur. So now I want to go into the symptoms of COVID-19. And so next slide, what are those symptoms? The thing is, I'm not going to spend much time because I know most of us are already familiar with these symptoms. And so for serious COVID-19 symptoms requiring immediate care, if one develops any of these symptoms, needs to call the seek medical attention immediately. So mostly, for most common symptoms, it starts with shortness of breath or difficulty in breathing, and then loss of speech or mobility or confusion, and then chest pain. There are people that will just have chest pain. But then the most common ones, again, include fever. It comes with fever and then cough. And what is unique about this cough is that it's a dry cough. Then tiredness. Then in some people, it's loss of taste or smell. Then the less common symptoms includes sore throat, includes diarrhea, headache, rash or skin, and then we have body aches and pains, and then for some people it could be red or irritated uh, uh, eyes. But then again, if you look at these symptoms, you will know that they are also just like other, they are similar to diseases like malaria, dengue fever, and other infections. And so if you have this, if you are living like in Nigeria or tropics where malaria is endemic, you have also dengue fever, what you need to do is to go to the hospital to do the test. That's the only way we'll be able to differentiate between malaria and, in fact, I've had recently some individuals that we tested and they were positive, and they said, no, they are having malaria, they have been taking anti-malaria, but actually it's COVID-19. So COVID-19 sometimes can present like malaria, so all that we need to do is to go to the hospital and do the test. That's the only way we can now differentiate it. Next slide. Also, what we've said is that, next slide, research have shown that for most people that will be infected with COVID-19, about 80% of those people will have just a mild disease or no symptoms. Next slide. While about 15% of the individuals will have just a severe disease, they will require hospitalization. Some of them may even require oxygen. Then in about 5% of the people that will be infected will require intensive care unit. They will have to be taken to the ICU, whereby they will be put on ventilators for them to survive. And we've seen that most people that die with the disease, most of them have other background diseases like diabetes, coronary respiratory diseases, cancer, kidney problem, and the rest. And then in the older population. Next slide, please. So, but what we have seen again, next slide, is that most people will recover from COVID-19 after 2 to 6 weeks. Most people will recover. But for some people, the symptoms may linger or reoccur for weeks or months following initial recovery. And this can also happen in people who just had mild disease or asymptomatic disease. And so now we're beginning to see that there's a possibility of chronic form of the disease, because these people may just be battling with tiredness, and the rest. And so some people may develop complications. They may have lasting health effects on their health. And so what are those long-term consequences that we are beginning to notice or observe in people with COVID-19? Next slide. Some of these long-term consequences are cardiovascular problem. That is, it could affect inflammation of the heart and can cause heart failure. It could also create breathing problem. It can affect the function of the lungs and create problem with our breathing. We're seeing acute kidney injury. In fact, even in youth, we have seen people that had to rely on dialysis because during COVID-19, they had acute kidney failure. And so because of that, they have to depend on dialysis for some time. Once with acute kidney failure, there's a tendency for recovery. But when it becomes chronic, there is no recovery. Some people have had problems with dermatology, like rash or hair loss. Some people have brain or neurological complications, like problem with their smell or taste. We say that some people, the symptoms is loss of smell and taste. So some people, even after they recover, they may not even get back that function of smell and taste. Some people may have issues with sleep, with difficulty with concentration or memory problems. And then the psychiatric complications. Some people may have depression, anxiety, and the rest. And then also musculoskeletal problems. Some people may continue to deal with pains in their joints. They may continue to deal with tiredness, fatigue. They can't even explain it even after they've recovered from the disease. Next slide. So in terms of diagnosis, early recognition and rapid diagnosis are essential to prevent transmission and also provide supportive care. So high index of suspicion is required. If you have any interaction with someone within the 14 days that had these symptoms, or you've traveled to places where there's a possibility of COVID-19, you are supposed to quickly go to the hospital. And we have the rapid diagnosis test, and then we have the polymerase chain reaction test that will do that. Then in terms of a treatment, next slide, there's no specific treatment yet for COVID-19. But we have what we call supportive care. We do symptomatic care. If you have fever, we control it. If you have diarrhea and you are losing fluid, we replace it. Many drugs that we are using are still on trial. We've used some result with mixed reaction. We've used chloroquine, we use azithromycin and the rest, but none is conclusive, is still under trial. For now, vaccine remains our best hope for now. And thank God we have vaccines available. So how do we prevent COVID-19? Next slide. First of all, these are some non-pharmacological measures. Next slide. To prevent COVID-19. The first thing is we need to wash our hands regularly. Wash your hands with soap and running water, especially when your hands are visibly dirty. You know, if you don't have water and running water, please use your hand sanitizer to clean your hands. But when they are visibly dirty, please, it is preferable. Please, can you go back? If you have go back, please. So you wash your hands with soap and water. And the thing is that any kind of soap is okay. It will go and kill the virus. It goes into the cell membrane of the virus and rupture it and kill the virus. And whether it's a local soap, whether it's medicated or non medicated soap, is okay. You just need running water and wash your hands, and it suffices. So the next thing you have to do is to use your face mask. Face mask is very important in the sense that because we can easily infect others. And when you use face mask, you are not just protecting others, but you are protecting the people around you. You are being a good neighbor. You know, you are being your brother's keeper. And what we have seen is that for face mask used to be effective is that if everybody within a place is using the face mask, that's when it is most effective. But when others are using and some people are not using, they still endanger those people who are not using it. And we have to use the face mask properly. And we need to know there are proper ways to use the face mask. Go to the next slide. How do we put on the face mask? The first thing you need to do, you know, you can either be a disposable or non-disposable face mask, the cloth mask. So for you to use your face mask, the first thing is that you must observe your hand hygiene. Wash your hands with soap and water or use your hand sanitizer. And then you put your face mask, cover your mouth and your nose with the mask and make sure that there are no gaps in between. And avoid touching the mask while using it. But in case you touch it, please just use your hand sanitizer to clean your hands or you wash your hands. And then when you finish using it, you should go, if it is a disposable glove, the mask, you take it to a container, a dustbin that has a cover and put it there. After that, you wash your hands. But in case, next slide, if you are using a cloth mask, what you must still wash your hands before wearing it and after removing it. And then avoid touching it while in use. And when you finish using it, please, you should wash it with detergent or soap, soak it in the detergent and wash it very well and allow it to dry under the sun and iron if you can. When you do that before it will be ready for use, that's if you are using the cloth mask, which is reusable. Then other preventive measures is that, next slide, you avoid touching your face with your hands. I told you that the virus enters through our body, through our mouth, eyes, and nose. So avoid it. And then respiratory etiquette. Cover your mouth and your nose with a tissue when coughing or sneezing, and then discard it in a dustbin with a cover. And then wash your hands. But in case you don't have that tissue at that time when the cough is disturbing you, use your elbow to cough into it. And then you maintain social distancing of at least 2 meters from the person. This is to avoid getting the infection. Then avoid close contact with anyone showing the symptoms or respiratory illness. Avoid handshake. Next slide, please. Avoid handshake. And then you clean and disinfect frequently touch objects and surfaces. Like I told you about our phones, it will be good from time to time you use hand sanitizer or spirit to clean your phone or door handles where you know people are frequently touching, so as the chances of also there's this slides that next slide please, about 3 factors to help you make safer choices when you are in an area of widespread COVID-19 transmission. First of all, you need to consider the location. Usually, you know, open air spaces are safer than enclosed spaces. So you can see this diagram, as you are in an enclosed spaces, you are less safe. But when you are in an open place, even if you are going to have meetings with many people, it is better to do it in an open space. It is safer. Then in terms of proximity, the farther you are away from other people, when there is a crowd, the farther you are from them, you are safer. But if you are closer to them, it's less safe. And then in terms of time, shorter time periods with others are safer when you are spending lesser time. And that's one thing that I know we've advised many churches to reduce the time of services, because when you spend, the longer time you spend and in an enclosed environment, the more the risks. But when you reduce the time, you reduce the risks. Then the next slide. And if you have been diagnosed with COVID-19, you have to stay in a separate room away from others and open the windows frequently. What are some of the myths that I want to just briefly talk about? People believe that when you eat garlic, lemons, and the rest, fruits and the rest, you will prevent the disease. No, they can build your immunity, but it will not prevent the disease. And so people even say that alcohol ingestion kills the virus. In fact, someone said that the alcohol is not just a hand sanitizer, it's also a stomach sanitizer. But there's no evidence to show that when you take alcohol, it prevents people from getting the virus. And then some people say that it's a disease of rich people. And up to today, in fact, today I was teaching some people and they were telling me, no, that it was a rich man's disease. I said, but it's also killing poor people. So it's not just a rich man. And then wearing the face mask protects completely. If you don't wear it properly, the face mask, it will not protect you. And if you're doing it and others are not doing the same, it puts you at risk. And so people say that Africans are immune to the disease, but that's not true. So people say that the hot climate destroys the virus, but it's not true, because we've seen in hot climates like Iran, they were also battling with it. Next slide. And then also, so people have 5G mobile networks that it's also caused COVID-19, but there's no link to that. Some people have talked about drugs, dexamethasone, antibiotics like azithromycin that they prevent the disease, but it's not true. And so all these have not been proven to be true. Next slide, please. So also the issue of vaccine. Next slide, please. Vaccine, as the majority of the population are still susceptible, so our best bet is to have vaccine. And I told you about the concept of herd immunity. The essence is to get at least 70% of the population immune to this, developing immunity against this virus. That is the only way that you'll be immune to this virus. Either when after the infection you get immune, or when you get the virus. But it's so peculiar in the case of COVID-19 that even after getting the infection, the immunity is just for a short period of time. So you are still susceptible to getting infected after some time, and so that is the challenge that we are having. But the vaccine is the only way that will help us to return back to our own normal way of life. So next slide. Why should I get vaccinated? Because right now we're having many challenges with the vaccine, because it protects you and your family, and you are being your brother's keeper or your neighbor. So you want to protect your neighbor, and it helps to stop the spread in the community. And also it sets examples for others, including the residents, family, co-workers, and the community at large. And we have seen that even in the case of the Delta variant, it's more severe in communities that people have refused to get vaccinated. Even if you get the disease, when you are vaccinated, you get just a mild form of the disease. And next slide. Usually these vaccines have to undergo these stages. We have the preclinical stage, we have the phase 1 stage, whereby you test for safety and the extent of immune response it induces. Then phase 2, you have larger number in which you are testing for efficacy, safety, side effects, and then you have phase 3. So all drugs, vaccines must undergo this stage. Be safe for human use. And all these COVID-19 vaccines so far that we've had, next slide, have undergone all these stages. Yeah, despite the fact that, next slide, please. Okay, you stop there. So so far we've had these vaccines. Now go back. We have the Pfizer vaccine, which is an mRNA vaccine, which is that contains genetic sequence of the antigen. So they just inject it and then it replicates this antigen. And so the antibody is produced against the virus. And so also we have the AstraZeneca Oxford. Actually, I don't know how to explain it without getting complicated. So I think I will just not go there. And then we have the Moderna vaccine and then the Johnson and Johnson vaccines. And there are still many. There's a Russian vaccine. There's also another one from China and the rest. There are still. Next slide, please. So these are the vaccines that are so far in circulation. And all of them have been able to underwent all those stages. Despite the fact that people are saying that they are shorter because now we have improvement in technology and the rest. But what are our challenges with the vaccine so far? Next slide, please. Next slide. Number one is that we have the problem of vaccine hesitancy. But people are refusing to take the vaccine, and largely because of their belief system, because of what they have heard. And this is the problem due to infodemics or misinformation. And that is another challenge that we are dealing with in this response to COVID-19, where infodemic means that we have a barrage of information and most of them are not true. And this is fueled by social media. With social media, in this and just put it, and people who believe are not, it's so easy for people to believe false information than true information, and research has shown that has a lot to do with mistrust for government. Research has shown that in countries whereby there's high mistrust between the citizen and government, there's also high rate of mistrust with COVID-19 vaccine and the rest. And so people are targeting their government, they're angry with their government, and this is a global phenomenon. And because of that, people are quick to believe things that are not true. And so, in science, there are processes for us to believe what you say. You can't be, expert opinion is the least in terms of quality of evidence. So just because I wake up and say I'm an expert in COVID-19 and this is that, does not make it true. People subject the same method you've used to put it to test and see whether they will come up with the same thing. That's what we want. And then also we're having problem with logistics, especially in Nigeria. For example, we've had Moderna vaccine that just came, and Moderna vaccine requires that you store it. But however, we don't have many facilities, I think in Abuja and some regional centers. So now government has to start thinking of how to purchase a freezer that will store these drugs at less than 20 degrees centigrade. However, the Oxford AstraZeneca is better for us between 2 to 8 degrees centigrade, and we have facilities for that because of the already structures for our vaccination. We have all those refrigerators in most local governments. They are able to store this vaccine. So these are issues that government have. Now, what are the challenges concerning myths and disinformation concerning the vaccine? Next slide, please. So in terms of the myth, some people have said that the process was rushed and compromised safety. But the fact is that the study was studied in thousands of people over 2 months and has undergone rigorous review by regulatory agencies. It passed through all these stages. And so the regulatory agencies cannot bring a vaccine that has not been tested for people to be vaccinated with. Then myth number 2 is that people who get vaccinated don't have to wear masks anymore. Evidence have shown that vaccination will prevent people from getting sick, but they may still acquire and transmit the virus to others. So we are still studying on still early, and so because we need to be careful, that's why people are still advised to still be wearing putting on their face mask. Then another myth is that the vaccine has microchips that allow government to track people. This is people have been going about saying that that when you bring metal, that you have a magnetic attraction to metal, around where you had. But that is not true. I've been vaccinated, I've collected a full dose, and I've tried it and it's not working. And I've asked other people who have been, it is true for them, but it's not true. But people are so quick to believe those kind of lies information that are not true. Next slide. But what should the vaccine cannot give you COVID-19. You can expect some short-term discomfort, some mild side effects like fatigue, headache, muscle pain and injection site after vaccination. But most of them will last maybe between 24 to 48 hours, and they are more pronounced. And this side effect means that it's a good thing, it's not a bad thing. And so there's no need to be afraid of. These side effects are normal, common, and expected. Yes, we may have some more serious side effects, but they are very, very minimal blood clots that we're having. Because you can have 35 million people getting vaccinated, and maybe you're having just 20 people coming down with those kind of side effects. Next slide. So I would like to conclude by saying that COVID-19, next slide, please, is pandemic that is highly contagious with fast and person-to-person spread has been implicated as a main route of community spread. Please, can you go to the next slide? The indicated, especially in the third wave, is responsible for most of the cases we are seeing now. There are vaccines available in Nigeria, and Nigeria recently commenced the vaccination. Personal hygiene measures, especially being infected. Next slide. Be informed, be prepared, be safe, be ready to fight COVID-19. Thank you very much. Hello.
Thank you so very much. It's been a great time of discuss. It's been a great time of discuss with you, of learning. We're so grateful. I believe that for as many that will come through this video clip and through the audio clip, that will be well informed, will understand. It was indeed a great time of explanation of what COVID-19 in itself is, and some of the needs and the importance of the vaccine. For us at Speak Life Initiative, myself in particular, and everyone that we've been working together with over time, we've been emphasizing on the need that, look, COVID-19 is real, get vaccinated. And that's our message, get vaccinated. And it doesn't stop there. Continue to observe the non-pharmaceutical measures that have been set out. Thank you so very much, Dr. Meshak, Daniel, for great time. We're so grateful. We look forward to interacting and engaging with you more subsequently.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
And together, let's join of COVID-19.
Thank you very much. And that is it today on our webinar series on the project Climate Action Responding to COVID-19. Note that this webinar is brought to you by Speak Life Initiative of ConnexUs Influencer for Change, Nankpak Cirfat, with support of ConnexUs through the European Union instrument promoting stability and peace. Thank you so very much. Until we come your way again, stay positive, continue to observe non-pharmaceutical measures, and get vaccinated. Do have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
The world is in the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic. Now, safe and effective COVID-19 vaccines are a game changer in the fight against the pandemic.
But for the foreseeable future, we must keep wearing masks, washing hands, ensuring good ventilation indoors, observing social distancing, and avoid crowded places.
No one is safe until everyone is made safe by the COVID-19 vaccine. This message is brought to you by Speak Life Initiative of Nankpak Cirfat, made possible with support from ConnexUs through the European Union's instrument contributing to stability and peace.